This is Sg2 Perspectives, a conversation with Sg2 experts and industry thought leaders about the biggest trends in healthcare and what we expect that's going to mean for the future of healthcare delivery.
But it's very much a partnership. We are proof about this adage that you can't cut your way to success. So we are the growth side. Once you're done cutting, in fact, stop cutting for a second and let us grow. And then you won't have to cut so much. We always say we're funding future initiatives by growing.
Welcome to Sg2 Perspectives. I'm your host, Trevor DaRin. I have two great guests today. We're going to get right into the weeds on the work that so many health systems are doing around better understanding their network integrity and how they can try to make an impact on it and keep moving the needle on physician alignment. We have Tammy Tiller-Hewitt, founder of Tiller-Hewitt, our partner in strategic growth consulting. They're really the executors, while my other guest, Chris Perry, who's an associate principal on our consumer innovations team, that's using all our data and insights to identify some of these problems across health systems, and then we can tackle them together. I wanted to bring them both here because I want to hear some of the stories of the projects that they've got to tackle recently, some of the challenges they've uncovered at health systems and how we've tried to dig into it. Chris, I'm going to go to you first because this is a space that's shifting a lot in terms of both the problems health systems are trying to tackle, how fragmented the space is, the competition, how's it impacting the types of questions and the types of initiatives that are coming across your desk?
Currently, what we're seeing is a lot of mergers, acquisitions. People are consolidating. Before, folks were going out and trying to make sure to shore up their networks, but now they've got people in their networks. Now they're having to bring in a whole new set of people that may have been their direct competitors before and try to make them part of the family. So you are now going into several offices that you would probably never go into before. The other thing is liaisons are now being used for things like population health, other really big network initiatives, making sure that the ACO providers are being taken care of and also clinically integrated networks. That's a lot different than it was even just a few years ago.
Yeah, Tammy, you seeing the same things or different patterns or what?
It's interesting, Chris. I don't even think about from your vantage points. That's why I think it's awesome that we make such great partners. As you said in the intro, Trevor, we're the execution arm. So once strategy is set, there's many organizations have struggled with now what? Who's going to execute this awesome strategy? And that's where Tiller-Hewitt comes in. And that's why we make such a perfect partner with SG2. At our core, when we started the business over 20 years ago, what we did was stand up sales programs, or people know them as physician liaison programs. And it's very consultative, needs-based driven. It's a position that reports directly to the C-suite. Most of the time it's to the CEO. Years ago, when we started our business, I would get calls from these CEOs of hospitals and health systems who would talk about needing volume or needing better engagement with their physicians. And as it related to volume and growth, for the most part, they were ready to accommodate the growth. Today, it's a completely different story. Today, everyone still wants the same thing. We want strategic growth. We want the right kind of business coming in our door. If we're going to grow, let's go after the right kind. But almost no one's ready for it today. Now, our model has completely shifted that before we stand up the execution side of this relationship or the sales or the liaison program, we now do a strategic growth readiness assessment to make sure that the organization is ready for the kind of volume that we can deliver in the first year. I know we're going to talk about access and capacity, but that's where we uncover not only the access and capacity, but the confusion about everyone says, well, we have access issues or we have capacity issues, when oftentimes it's one or the other. It's not both. And how you solve for each is a completely different approach.
Give us more. How do you solve for each? What's similar? What's different? Are there huge differences across markets, across type of health system, across scale?
We always say, if you've seen one, you've seen one. When we talk about access, that's about getting through the front door. It's, can we get in? That's one way. There could be people behind the door ready to catch these patients. Lots of appointments, lots of surgery slots ready, but they can't get through the front door. So we work at the front door and create side doors. You talk so often on your podcast about digital front doors, and it can even be simpler than that. Like take the registration out of the main registration area and put it in a service line area so patients can get in there more quickly. Now we do rapid impact process improvement where we look at it from the outside in. Oftentimes, like SG2 has an awesome PI program where they'll come in and do Lean Six Sigma principled projects, but it's a deep dive and it's a longer term. Ours is for 90 days. We're trying to look at it from the outside in. What does it look like to the customer, the patient, or the physician office staff to get in? How many questions are we asking at registration? Are we asking 15 questions where the imaging center down the street is asking 2 questions? What's the patient's name and what's the exam you want to do? Are we the path of least resistance? But we often find, which is very similar, and not that you've seen one, is that oftentimes the solution and the problem is really just hiding in plain sight. People are just get too close to it and they can't see that, no, a 2.5-hour wait at registration is not the norm, and it's causing our customers to refer other places. We had one organization recently, which I know we have a case study that you could share with them, where we discovered that the medical group, there was $100 million a year leaking out from our employed enterprise to our competitors across the street for business that we offer. And it was all because of access issues. There was never a capacity issue, it was access. The orthopedics in our medical group, where it was too clunky and cumbersome, they were wanting to approve the patient before they would accept it, where the orthopedic group across town were like, send them over. And there was long waits and patient access. So there were a lot of little problems that we could solve for quickly through a process improvement event to bring all the players together to say, look at how convoluted this process is. Would you come here as a customer? And the answer is always no. So we solve for that. We try to fix it rapidly before we get the liaison team out on the streets asking for new business.
Chris, maybe you can add some of the backstory to that. How did we pinpoint where to look? What exactly did we find? Did the client point us and lead us in a direction? Was it really data-driven? Give us a little of the backstory.
It's kind of a few different things. Number one, you always need data to help drive any strategic decisions, priorities, initiatives that you do. But people with boots on the ground are giving you the information that you need. If you have 5 people in the field saying that there's long waits for MRI or a cardiology appointment, then it's time to look at that. You have several different things that you can look at. You can also use databases at Vizient, like the ODB and the CDB, to help understand clinically what's going on. But you put those things together, and that is where you figure out where those sticky points are. And the truth is, you don't need to do surgery if a Band-Aid works. So sometimes people try to jump in and do everything, but really sometimes it's just very simple things that you can do that can make a really big difference. Don't you think, Tammy?
Oh, 100%. Back to my example of we have imaging, we're hemorrhaging this high margin imaging business because we ask too many questions because we've always done it that way. And why do we need to ask, literally in some hospitals, 25 questions to schedule an MRI or CT? And while the imaging center is asking 2 or 3. So it's that easy stuff when we pull people together to say, why do you ask this? Oftentimes they're like, I don't know, because we've always done it that way. And we're like, let's get rid of it right now. How many can we knock off of here? You made a great point, Chris. Your data, which is so resourceful, tells us the what's leaking out, but we never know the why exactly. That's why the execution piece of this, we uncover the why. The physicians and the staff will tell us, I'll tell you exactly why I'm sending across town or wherever else, but to us. That's why Mary, but if we don't have that information, oftentimes organizations, hospitals, and health systems have set up their own outreach or liaison program, and they just grab a medical staff roster and go out and say, hey, make the doctors happy or go get some business. They don't know what business is coming from them, what's not. And we'll literally, when we ride with some liaisons, the liaisons will be saying to the physician, hey, thanks for your business. I'm like, well, what business do they give you exactly? I'm not sure. So Chris's data married to the internal data, it tells the complete story. And then we can be so much more strategic in growing volume because there are a lot of capacity issues. There's access and capacity that if we're going to grow business, if there are 5 slots open, we want to fill them with the right kind of business for those 5 slots.
With that in mind, talk about the trickle down or how you're flowing information up the chain. I mean, I've definitely heard from strategy teams, this is a place where they don't lean in that much because it's messy, because BD and liaisons don't really report up through them. Their task has not been, here are your strategic goals, and now deploy this great resource to go work directly with the physicians in our market to deliver on it. Talk about how that's hopefully evolving, how you try to put processes in place that better marry system goals to the boots on the ground execution.
Well, that's when we do the readiness assessment. We find out right away, what are the strategic initiatives of the organization? We can't execute if there's not a plan. Then we're just faking it till we make it. So we're partners with strategy or data. Our programs, when we stand them up directly, report to a senior executive. So they're not way low reporting to a director of marketing who reports to a this. They're positioned very high. And many of our liaisons go on to C-suite positions and roles. But this is an extension of administration because doctors want to know that they are speaking to, or they only have one rung away from a decision maker. But it's very much a partnership. We are proof about this adage that you can't cut your way to success. So we are the growth side. Once you're done cutting, in fact, stop cutting for a second and let us grow. And then you won't have to cut so much. We always say we're funding future initiatives by growing. Our batting average is about 25 million incremental net patient revenue in 1 year. You can do a lot with $25 million. And most of it comes from leakage from Chris's data and then the strategy. So it's such a great partnership.
Chris, you used to be on the health system side and work in this world. Talk about what you saw there, how you see it playing out today, and how we try to encourage better collaboration.
You were talking about access and capacity. Access has always been a problem with very certain services. And I don't think that that's going to change. So that's when you need to get creative. There's not enough rheumatologists. There's not enough endocrinologists. There's always going to be that way. But you have to think about using your APPs. And even in a place like Duke, sometimes we partnered with community endocrinologists to make sure that patients had a place to go when we were full. You have to look at your resources and make sure that patients are getting taken care of. And here's the other thing. Once a provider moves away from your organization for a referral, it's very hard to get them back because they moved away for a reason. And if things go well, it's very hard to get that referral back. You need to be constantly communicating with the providers that you serve about what's coming when. What is that back door to get in? You want to have a direct line of communication. If they're frustrated about something and want to talk to a chief or chair, you have to have those people to back you up to be able to do that.
Two things just come to mind when you're saying that, Chris. Number one, the internal communication. People underestimate that. It reminds me again of the cliche, what's old is new again, or this never went out of vogue, but people think it is the internal communication. And so that's why we built a PRM that has all of the market intel in it, all of the data. It becomes the source of truth. So nobody's left out of the communication. So if there's something going on in the field, not that the liaisons don't respond quickly with issues to get them resolved, but it creates a communication source of truth so everyone can access that. Second is many organizations miss the mark on when a physician is loyal, they think, well, we really don't have to pay attention to them. We get all their business. I always ask the question, but what if you lost it? Would that be costly? 100%. And it's sometimes impossible to get back. Your liaisons should be on a very similar call cadence to your loyal providers as they are to many organizations called splitters or zero admitters, whatever the BC team you label it. Loyals are important. They brought you to the dance. Never put them on, well, we can go see them once a year, once a quarter. No.
They brought you to the dance. Love it. This has been so great because you've highlighted several places where if you can identify it, the solves are not huge, big rocks to move. Talk about something a little higher order, an example of something where, sure, there was maybe a few little adjustments, but actually this organization needed to make a couple big changes, whether it was data illuminated something they had no idea about, or a place where, okay, you can make some small adjustments or you can do something really big.
One of them was in a growth readiness assessment. We were interviewing a neurosurgeon, and he said, I'm fairly new to the market. I'm ready. They said they would help get me busy. It's a classic complaint that we hear. We're now talking to the CEO and the C-suite. What's going on? What's the initiative been? And the CFO, who happened to be the last meeting of the day, said, hey, listen, by the way, don't grow neurosurgery business. We lose money on every neurosurgery because of our managed care contracts. Right hand didn't know what the left hand did. So recruitment just brought this guy in. We're ready to just fill his surgery schedule. And then we're told by the CFO, no, we have bad contracting. And I want to say, like, where were you when all this recruitment was going on, when you were writing the sign-on bonus check? And that was something that was hard to swallow. And we had to get to, okay, what are we going to do to solve this? Because we're about to lose him and you've just paid $1 million to get him here. So that would be one example that comes to mind quickly. In a smaller organization, not everyone knew that was a problem.
This may be a pretty good story. It was about pediatric cardiology and pediatric heart surgery. The organization that I worked for did a lot of pediatric heart surgery. There was a certain area in North Carolina where it was mostly TRICARE healthcare insurance, which Duke is not a part of. But there were so many children that needed this surgery, and it was really, really hard to get them into the system to get it done. One of the things that we did was we found kind of a loophole that says if a Duke pediatric cardiologist is the first person to take care of a newborn that has a cardiac condition, they can finish the rest of their care at Duke. This was in a big military town in North Carolina. We put a Duke pediatric cardiologist full-time in this town. He saw every single newborn. It opened the complete door to a lot of pediatric heart cases that weren't coming to us before. And that doctor ended up living in that community for 7 years before he came back to Duke to become a chief.
I hope you were the one that found that contract language and were able to double down on it. I bet you were. All right, Tammy, most SG2 members, most of our listeners are folks that are either really clearly in strategy or have a big strategic responsibility. How can strategy leaders get better visibility into what BD is doing, how they're performing, what they're struggling with, and how they can better connect it to higher order system strategic goals?
The first thing would be is just to reach out to the team and see what they're doing. So hopefully they're executing the strategy that the strategy team has created and has with the other executives of the organization. So the first thing is just opening up communication and then understanding what their metrics is for success. Hopefully it's growing that strategic service line that was selected through strategy, but starting communication for sure, and understand what their call volumes, what their call cadence is. How did they target the providers that they're going after to try to grow business? Way too often, the BD team or the liaison team doesn't have the structure and the strategy behind them, reporting too low in the organization to affect change. But that would be the first thing. I would understand what PRM they're using, see if they can get in to look at some of the information. But I would start by meeting them and understanding what their metrics is, from their call volumes to how do they measure success. And hopefully it's on incremental growth.
The only other thing that I might add to that, Trevor, is that BD teams also need to be reporting out on a very regular cadence. Because when you report what you're doing once a week, people get to where they expect it. We always wanted to give answers before the questions were even asked. Weekly, send a report out. Let everybody know what you're doing. Don't make it crazy. Make it one page, the high level, and everybody has insight into what you're doing and how you're moving the organization strategy.
Yeah, so now we have this integrated tool. So we have SG2's Provider Connection, Tiller-Hewitt's Tracker Plus, which is the PRM, the intel from the liaison team, married together. So you have all that you can create. The liaisons can do their pre-call plans in that, can convert it to a call note that converts to a weekly report. So it's all right there. So there's no excuse that all key stakeholders shouldn't and couldn't be in the know real time.
I love it. That's so practical. Thanks for spelling that out. Chris and Tammy, this has been perfect. It's such an important topic right now. And it's a topic I know we'll be doing more research on throughout the year, especially digging more into our provider connections and leakage data. So it'll be something we continue talking about. Thanks both for your perspective.
Thanks, Trevor.
Wow, thanks, Trevor, for having us.
Thanks for listening. If you like this episode, please subscribe, rate, and review us, and or follow us on Twitter and LinkedIn at SG2 Healthcare. And if you want to talk more about innovative healthcare strategies, you can always email me at sg2perspectives@sg2.com. Finally, SG2 is a Vizient company, and there are a bunch of Vizient podcasts that you might like. You can find them at Vizient /podcasts. Have a great day.